All right, it's 3 p.m. I'm going to call this committee into session. Thank you. Do we have any committee comments?
None for Boyd.
All right, anyone else? Do we have any public comments? All right, seeing none, then we'll move on to item 3, request for variance. Evan Zern, 226 West Panamint. Renee, is this yours?
Sure, I'll cover it. We covered this at P&E yesterday also. I'll go over it again. Mr. Zern owns the 4 parcels that are listed in his letter, and he is building or planning to build a duplex on each of those parcels, and each parcel has had previous service with the district. So per our requirements, there's a requirement to pay a capital facility fee for the second meter on those, for those duplexes. So he's asking for a variance to not have to pay that. We had something similar come before the board July of 2020, which the gentleman was building a triplex. And after giving the variance to that person, we brought it back to the board to take a look at our policy, and the board did tell staff to go ahead and redline the policy so that we can make some changes, and staff dropped the ball on that and it didn't get done. So hence the policy didn't get changed, so it's back in front of the board again. So we will do that, bring it back to you next month. But nevertheless, they have a 3/4 inch meter, and so for 2 3/4 inch meters, there would be the charge for the second meter. What we had recommended in the past, that is if they could provide calculations showing that the 1 meter would be sufficient for the flow, that they wouldn't have to pay for the second capital facility fee or a third capital facility fee in the past. So they did provide those calculations. Each unit is 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, so a duplex is like a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house.
Okay.
They show they need 10.5 gallons per minute, which a 3/4 inch meter would be more than sufficient for that. So they will still meter each unit, but wouldn't have to pay the second capital facility fee for the second unit.
Okay, is this request in keeping with the variance that was granted in 2020?
Correct, yes, it is.
How is it materially different from the one that was requested of us last month?
The last one was for a triplex, and they were going to be charged for 3 capital facility fees for 3 meters, and they were able to show that a 1-inch meter would be sufficient for the flow, and so they paid fees based on a 1-inch meter, even though they put in. Oh, you're talking about Roy Nichols?
Yep.
Oh, that's completely different. That was different. That was where they were crossing property lines to.
Not.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
No. This is a waiver of fees. He was looking for, he didn't want to have to put in 2 other meters on 2 separate parcels, so.
All right. So last month's lines would have been water district piping that crossed property lines, and then we would have been responsible for that. And if I remember correctly, we had a little piece of property that was quite upsetting when I got on the board, that we ended up having to give it to somebody to make them happy because our lines crossed their property. All right, sorry, this was a while ago.
I don't remember that, do you?
It was supplying water to the Catholic church here in town. It ran down somebody's,
That was a parcel that should have been transferred to the church and didn't get transferred.
something like that.
Yeah, it didn't have anything to do with water lines, but it was,
Right, was, obviously was, it
the
had.
county didn't have it correct,
Somebody
yeah.
messed it up and we ended up paying for
We
it,
didn't
so.
have to buy that parcel, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, the staff
We recommend granting
be
the,
granted?
grant the variance, yes.
Okay, it's consistent with the one from 2020. Mr. Vice President, do you have any questions or comments?
No, we discussed this yesterday and I came to the same conclusion.
Okay, so I think you're looking for us to make a recommendation?
Yes.
Right.
Committee would recommend it, granting the variance, yeah,
Okay, and then,
with the understanding that we will revise the policy.
okay.
Yes.
and
All
bring it
right.
To the board next month.
Needs to be done, yes.
Okay, so if there are any objections? No. Then I will, the Admin Exec Committee recommends the granting of the variance. Making a note, just a moment. Okay. Item 4, Junior Associate Board Member Pilot Program.
Okay, I don't know if you've read your latest Aqua newsletter, but there's an article in there that piqued my interest. It was about a junior associate board member program that was initiated by Scotts Valley Water District. The general manager there, Perrette Herman, is an acquaintance of mine, so I emailed her to see if I could talk to her a little bit more about the program, and we had a conversation for about 40 minutes where she discussed their experience with starting this program. The intent is to, and as you can see by the staff report, get a couple of younger people involved that may not be familiar with local water issues, get them involved in civic engagement and maybe inspire them to get into a water career, maybe board member perhaps.
Okay.
But they would be part of the board, part of the staff report. Excuse me. She provided me with the description of their program as well as the application that they use for candidates. Their experience was they started this before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit. They only had 3 applicants. The board interviewed them, selected 2, and then COVID hit. So the experience wasn't quite what they were hoping because the meetings were virtual, and sometimes with younger people, they may be a little bit inhibited on a web meeting to speak out. But since they're back to normal, they said they're getting them more involved. They would not be involved in closed session. They do not vote, but they do participate in discussions. They bring a different perspective of their generation to the board. We would do this as a pilot program. They do pay a stipend, by the way. Whether or not we want to do that, that's up to us. I did do a little calculation for the staff report on if they attended every board meeting and a committee meeting. I think it came to $2,600 if we had two junior board members. So there is a little bit of a financial, it's up to the board to decide whether you want to do that or not, but it seemed like you'd almost have to offer something to them. Of course, they wouldn't get benefits, insurance, and all that stuff, but after talking to her, I was convinced it seems like a very interesting way to do public outreach, get younger people involved in local water issues. And then, of course, the expectation would be that they go out and they talk to their peers and tell them what's going on with water and act as sort of ambassadors for the district. So what I'd be looking for in the staff report is direction from the board if they find favor in this program for staff to put together to take what was provided by Scotts Valley, go through it and tailor it to the needs for the water district and bring it back to the board.
Okay. Mr. Vice President, questions, comments?
So we discussed this yesterday during the P&E as well, so I had a little bit of insight into the program. Sounded good to me. I mentioned that we also have a leadership program here in Ridgecrest. I'm not sure who sponsors or leads that, but this is similar to that, right? It's getting kids involved our youth involved in adult activities.
Yeah.
And sounded good. The only, in thinking overnight, the only thing that came to mind was it might be a bit much to expect that they would be able to learn in real time just by participating in meetings, or maybe a small burden on staff to give them some reading material.
What Scotts Valley does, when I talked to Perrette, she said they pair them up with either a board member or a staff member,
Okay.
kind of as a mentor type of relationship.
Okay.
So that if they have, they can call, if they paired up with a person, they can call that person and ask questions or meet with them, that sort of thing. But yeah, the expectation would be that they just come to the meeting and that's their only involvement, that there'd be some interaction with either staff or with board members outside.
Okay.
So what are you looking for from the admin exec committee?
Well,
Action to move forward?
the recommendation of the staff report, would that be to accept option 1, which was to direct staff to come up with a draft of a program to present back to the board, essentially.
Okay. Do we have any comments from the other members of the committee? Is there anyone online? Perfect. All right. So
Looks net positive to me.
We can do an option one, I think. That I recommend moving forward with that. It's
And if
good
you
to
haven't
look
read
into
your
it.
Aqua newsletter, I'd encourage you to read that article. It's a good article. It gives you more background on the program and experience.
Okay. So the question for staff, do you have the adequate time and inclination to mentor a junior board member? Okay.
I
Okay,
don't think it's going to take a lot of,
I've had interns before, you know.
all right.
keep in mind,
Last one's a public works.
this would either be a high school student or a college student. They've got things that they've got going, so I can't anticipate it's going to be a lot of time involved.
It's my job to look at all the angles and the sea of smiling faces.
And it could be a board member too that could be the mentor.
That's-
General manager thing to me. I'm just-
I think that might be the case. Or, you know,
I'm
eventually
bringing
a
it to the
retired
board.
general manager.
I assume we'll take
I'm bringing it to the
turns.
board, so
All right. So I guess, would you
I'm
like to,
invested in it.
we'll go ahead and select option one for the staff to look into that. So what else? Pithy comment was I going to say? Yes. Where are they going to be located during the board meetings? Are we all going to
No.
switch together or
Gonna sit in your lap.
you're going to cram in next to, you can't do that. I
Yeah.
took training about that. That is not going to happen.
We have one empty mic here. Perhaps we could pair them up on that one mic.
Okay.
I don't know. I thought
We'll
about
think of
that.
something.
Chuck Krieger usually doesn't come to the meetings,
Right.
so.
So they get to make comments and questions and
And
answers.
if,
And
if he did
they
come
could
up.
go on for hours if they wanted to.
You could
If
put a
if he
couple
does show up
chairs
for a
over
meeting,
there.
then we can do kind of like a Charlie McCarthy
Okay.
thing, and I can have one of them sitting here and.
No, that won't happen. I take the training. I pay attention.
We can
There
always
will be
use
no
the-
sitting of laps.
We do have a remote mic,
Okay.
so we can set something up on a table or
Right.
something on.
We can make that work. I just think there's a lot of value in getting younger people in, and again, I think that they would serve as ambassadors to their generation outside of the district. And you know, we need all the outreach we can get and during these times of people understanding what's really going on with the water issues in this basin.
Okay. Item 5, California Wastewater Agency Response Network Omnibus Mutual Assistance Agreement.
Wanna cover
That's
that?
a mouthful.
That's
So-
Jason's baby.
Yeah, right after the earthquake in 2019, in a conversation with one of our northern water district neighbors, they introduced us to Cal Warren, which is this agency, which is a group of water agencies that share information, share resources in times of emergency. And we were researching it after that, and COVID put a damper on us joining it, but with everything returning to a more normal status, it feels like a good time to join the network and be part of this group. There's no financial obligation, there's no obligation whatsoever of us giving anything, but it does allow us to be part of that network that should somebody need something, we can more expeditiously respond.
And Jim Worth has reviewed the agreement, and we'll point out too that if we do respond and send resources, that we're compensated for it.
That's
the
true.
agreement, that the requester compensates the responder for their expenses. So,
How does this work? Go through a scenario where we've had a
Well,
crisis.
let's say we had the earthquake into that, and we were already a member of this. We could put out on this network that we need help, we need these pieces, we need these many people, we need, backhoes, we need whatever we need, and the neighboring agencies would send them over. Whereas when we did, we were blessed during that time where people just volunteered whatever they had nearby. But
Some materials.
whatever, yeah, everyone was really good about it, but this gives us the opportunity not only to receive that, but to be able to give back. Because we're kind of remote, and we don't really hear a lot of things that go on. So this gives us an opportunity to be part of something that is bigger than we are.
Okay, but no specific obligations to.
No obligations whatsoever. If we are in a position where we can't, we can't.
Is this going to require a change in procedure or policy in order to undertake the obligations
No.
that are stated here in Article 1 and 2, et cetera, for the Articles of Agreement?
it does require a resolution that a board resolution for us to sign on, which we'll be bringing to the board. I'd point out, as Jason said, during the 2018 earthquakes,
19.
okay, 2019 earthquakes, Palmdale, who I think is a member of Cal Warren, General Manager Dennis Lamoureux reached out to me right after the earthquakes and said, is there anything you need? So, by joining it, it's a mutual aid type thing. And like Jason said, there's no commitment. If you can't respond, you don't respond. But you agree that if you have the resources and you're available to provide those, that you will provide those. And again, you're compensated by the agency or the district that requests your services.
Who is the authorized official? How do we decide that? For authorizing or requesting assistance?
I would assume it'd be me.
Okay. And
And the resolution would be signed by the board president, you.
if we have a second disaster, who stands in for you normally if something horrible were to happen to you? Or you were to be on vacation and unreachable?
If the earthquake happened and swallowed me up,
Yeah, we are waiting for another earthquake on the San Andreas, so. Rock,
I
paper,
would imagine
scissors.
it'd be the operations manager, since he's got most of the resources
Okay,
under his purview.
I'm in charge of the emergency operations, so.
okay, that's you. All right, thank you. So, very nice.
And after that would be the board president.
And what if I'm out of town and I can't be reached? It'd be you, won't it? Assistance,
So.
right. Potential readiness ideas remain unknown, okay, all right. So that brings up another question. We have an emergency services committee meeting monthly here in town. Normally, I'm there about half the time. Do we have a regular appointee?
We have gone in the past, we haven't gone in a couple months. Now that they're hosting them again in person, we'll be attending some more.
Okay,
Both Renee and Jason were attending on behalf of the district.
I remember that, yes.
Pre-COVID, we haven't gone back, I don't think so.
We were online for a few, but
Yeah.
Okay. I can
Oh,
tell
wow.
they've gotten a little bit better. They don't drag on quite so long with the introductions. So you're looking for us to join? This is really kind of a board decision, yes?
yeah, as Don said, it'll be a resolution brought to us.
Okay. And you'd like a recommendation from the
Recommend approval of
administration?
the resolution.
Mr. Vice President, do you recommend this?
I think it's a great idea.
So
Anyway.
mote it be. All right. You have any comments from the rest of the committee? No one online? No? All right. Then let's move to the next item, item 6, District Transparency Certificate of Excellence.
Would you like to chime in? All right, well, our Certificate of Transparency Excellence, which we first earned in 2013, is up for renewal again in May. Lauren has been working on putting the application package together. You see what it involves. It's part of it's pretty extensive. A lot of information is required. And she's compiled all this, and you did drop it off at the chamber, correct?
It's currently with the DI being reviewed, and then it's
And
going
that
to
goes to the chamber. Okay, I misunderstood, because I saw Tim Smith yesterday at the chamber, and I mentioned to him reviewing it, and he said he hadn't received it. And I said, I thought you dropped it off to him, but, okay. So, yeah, it's at the Daily Independent now for review, because you are required to have two, whatever you call it, agencies or whatever review it. Then it'll go to chamber. I would anticipate they won't find anything, because I went through it as well with Lauren, and everything was in there, so we'll submit that. And then the District of Distinction, we earned that, I believe, in 2015, and it's also up for renewal as well. So we'll be putting that out for renewal. Both those are programs offered by California Special Districts Association. They're very, I think it's a good thing for a district to maintain those certifications. And as you see on our letterhead, if you've seen our letterhead, we do put that District of Distinction logo
Yep.
on the upper right-hand corner.
And we're already meeting all of
On our
these
website.
requirements.
Yes.
So it's nothing new here in terms of the way we operate.
Is it?
There's nothing new here in addition. to
No,
how
no,
we
it's just
operate.
renewal of the existing certifications.
You're really just asking us to,
But we don't
we should go
want
ahead and renew it.
This is just more informative. I don't think it's a recommendation because it's obviously advantageous and
So it's just the
prestigious
status.
to have those.
Here's what
yeah.
we're up to.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Vice President?
Early on, early on, the district, and to some extent, even now, you get comments about transparency. The district's doing things behind people's backs, and so it's always good to point that, you go through a rigorous qualification process to get the certification, and you can show people, we have all this, we do all this,
Mhm.
and it's not just lip service. We have a certificate to prove it.
Okay. Any comments from the committee? Mr. Vice President?
I think the level of transparency is impressive.
All right. Sir, do we have anyone online who would like to comment? Okay, then let us move on to item 7, Board of Directors Manual.
You can do that one, can't you? I'm trying to give you a little exposure here. All right. So as you can see, the District of Distinction application requires that the district's board minutes take action to adopt the policies and procedures in the Board of Directors manual. So we're just looking for, at the board meeting, a formal documentation for the minutes so that we can include that in the application for District of Distinction.
Okay,
Relatively simple.
so this is what we're doing, is we're going to need for you at the board meeting. Okay. Any comments from the committee? Any reluctant comments from the committee? No? Mr. Vice President?
I have nothing to add.
Okay. Anyone online joining us since the last time I asked you 50 seconds ago? All right, very good. Then let's move on to item 8.
Okay, once again, LAFCO surfaces. This time we're looking for,
I nominate you.
well, he's not on the ballot. Looking for, I guess, one board member? There's 4 nominees and looking for one board member. So you have a brief biographical
Biological?
graphical
Two
description,
legs, 2 eyes.
very brief. If that's sufficient for you to be confident making a recommendation, then we'd be looking for the board to make a recommendation among those 4 candidates to fill the open position.
Do we know any of the 4 candidates?
I do.
And aware that you have an open mic and this meeting is recorded? Do you recommend that person?
The person that I see on this list that I do know is very responsible, works for the Friends of Jawbone
Okay.
community, also runs or leads the local Friends of Public Lands Roundtable here in the Indian Wells Valley. So she's a long-term desert resident, has the desert's future in mind, and spends a lot of time doing so. So I think she understands our area. She isn't located in the Indian Wells Valley. She and her husband are in California City, but she's familiar with us here.
Okay. So are there any other people, candidates who stand out? Do any of the committee members see somebody that they feel stands out?
I am not familiar with any of these people.
Okay. Let me give you a moment to read the recommendation, read the biographical information. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. They all look like honorable persons who would do well. Is our vice president willing to make a recommendation to the board based on his personal knowledge?
I wouldn't want to discount the other candidates, but Ms. Sanders does have some LAFCO experience. She has been part of the current LAFCO in the past. not sure that she is currently now, so I don't know if this is a reelection or if she had gapped her service and is coming back, but I would be honored to nominate her. I think the world of her, and she is a very responsible individual. I think she would do LAFCO well.
Okay, I don't have any objections. Committee? Anybody online at this point? So then, let the record read that the Admin Exec Committee recommended Ms. Sanders, subject to discussion at the board meeting. Senate Bill 606 and Assembly Bill 1668. That's my favorite item on this menu.
I really have nothing to update with regard to that. I think probably our discussion should focus on, once we go to the board agenda, item number 7,
Okay,
the governor's executive order. That's probably something more relevant right now.
okay.
I really have no news on those Senate bill or Assembly bill.
They still haven't established the exterior water, that's,
No.
yeah, right.
Pump cooler or any?
Nothing.
Nothing, zero, zippity and doodah, all right. Committee, any comments about this? That you'll all be washing with 42 gallons of water a day? Some of you, that will be an increase. For others, that will be a decrease. All right. Item 10, draft agenda for regular board meeting. Okay. Mel, have you had a chance to review the draft agenda?
I did, and I didn't see anything that jumped out at me that needed adjustment. It looks like it's going to be a busy board meeting.
The 8A3 is highlighted. We're waiting for Jim to respond. Jim should be back in the office tomorrow.
The only thing that occurred to me after we had our phone call this morning, Don, do you think we'll be ready to have a discussion about the first
In
meeting?
closed session,
OSS, okay.
yes, yes.
So,
With regard to item 7A, the public hearing, just the executive order, if you aren't familiar with level 2 of our water source contingency plan, a lot of it has to do with getting information out to the public, educating the public, emphasizing conservation. Level 2 is for a shortage of between 10 and 20% of your supply, and it requires the district to have a 25% reduction. Now, what I need to clarify is that 25% compared to the previous month, year before, or what is that? Because as you know, and I'm encouraged by the fact that the governor didn't do a one-size-fits-all thing this time, like Governor Brown did, but he's allowing the local water agencies to respond according to their individual plans. And as you know, because in looking and reading some of the things that have come across in the last week, several water agencies after the last drought went back to the things that they were doing before. For example, many water source contingency plans call for, at a level 2, call for restricting landscape irrigation to 2 or 3 days a week. We've been doing that.
already doing that.
We've been doing that ever since 2013. So it almost seems, in looking at the plan, we're not quite at 25%, but as I've been sharing with you every month, we're over we're at 22.7% now compared to the 2013 baseline year. So and if you look at our production over the last period of time, last 6-7 years, it's been in decline. So I don't know how aggressive, how rigorous we need to get. I know certainly getting word out, publicizing it is something we could do, but, you know, as I said, we've been doing the 3 days a week. The thing that we have to deal with, and you brought up again, Mallory, is the evaporative cooling. We're already getting into 90 degrees, people are starting their coolers up. And this time of the year, evaporative cooling and landscape watering are the 2 big water uses. Where do you cut back on those? So people still have trees. You need to try to keep those trees alive as much as you can. One thing in the executive order that the governor has directed the State Water Board, I think it's by May 25th, to develop guidelines for what they're calling non-essential turf. This isn't residential, it's commercial, institutional, that sort of thing. So for example, I'll use the college as an example, they still have a lot of turf up there. But we're not talking about ball fields, soccer fields, parks, those sorts of things.
Attractive landscaping in front of the building.
Yeah, just decorative type of turf, and some of our schools, institutionals, the schools have turf that's not really used for recreation, so, and businesses as well. We still have businesses along, well, China Lake, some of the fast food places have turf that serves no purpose. I would anticipate that the state board is gonna come out with that directive, and so it'll fall on us to educate our customers and enforce that particular part of the executive order. And that's no watering at all. I mean, there's no watering for that turf at all. It's not 3 days a week. It's,
Right, it goes. So the policy already exists at the state level, or will we be required to put a policy in as a water district?
well, what we would be doing, by this action is adopting an ordinance 106, which basically says we're gonna comply with the executive order.
And that
There is
executive
an
order
ex-
says no unnecessary, no non-essential turf.
It doesn't say that now. It directs the state board to look into that.
So in the future, that will be an issue, all right?
We will know by May 25th. The state board is supposed to come out with their recommendations. There is an exclusion, a recollection, looking in and reading the executive order, if not watering that turf is at the expense of losing trees.
Okay, yeah, and most trees in the valley are associated with turf, get their water from when the lawns are watered.
So, for example, I remember I've got a couple in mind on China Lake fast food restaurants that have turf that don't have trees. So that would be subjective to the order, but if they had a tree in the middle of it, I guess you could make an exception for that.
If you have a burning urge to save your turf, you could plant a tree. Okay. So we've got the water that we serve our customers is all mined. It is not immediately affected by the drought, and in fact, won't be affected by the drought for quite a long time, long after we've turned to dust. So I understand we have to comply with the governor's executive order, but I want to state that it's not really applicable to our valley
And that's
because of the
my,
drought, because we're always in a drought condition in the valley.
that's my thought, is that we are, essentially, we have been in level 2. I mean, you could argue we're not doing 25%, but again, when you look at the decrease in pumping we've seen, well, that we've continued our restrictions throughout this period of time, I'm not sure, other than the messaging, that there's a lot that we can do. That's my thoughts expressed to the board. The other thing that's significant in the executive order is granting groundwater sustainability agencies, getting them involved in well permitting process, which is I got a email yesterday from the state board, which I forwarded to the groundwater authority staff, because I'm not sure they all receive it. Basically informing them that they are going to soon have the authority to review all well permits and sign off on them.
Ag wells or all wells?
All new wells.
Right.
If in the groundwater authority's opinion, the well will affect an existing well adversely, or this is especially true in high and medium priority critical basins, that there's every likelihood that the groundwater authority could decline or deny a permit on a well.
Right.
So that's the other important thing that's contained in the executive order.
And that authority to regulate the wells is not universally welcomed by groundwater authorities in the state. Say you had a piece of property in the valley and there was no other way to get water to it except a well, and the GA has told you you can't put a well in. There are court cases around the country that would suggest that that was taking of the property, and that's going to be quite exciting and a little spicy if people get angry. Okay, very good. Was there anything else about this, Dawn?
In general on the agenda? Or
I
just-
know about this, about
Oh.
the ordinance 106.
No, as it just says, we're going to have to bring an ordinance to the board for
Okay.
approval.
So the water district has continued to lower the amount of water that it's served to the customers at the same time that the town has actually seen growth in both business and residences. So I think, well done. And it speaks well to your conservation efforts. So thank you. Any other board Committee comments, rather? Anybody online? All right, then let's move to item,
I just have one.
we do have one question.
Yeah, one nitnoid comment. The LSS discussion, if that's going to occur during closed session, it's not listed. Is that do we have to have it listed to have that discussion?
Do we have to, what was that?
The LSS discussion that we had this morning that you mentioned that we would have during closed session?
LSS?
I'm sorry, the
FSS?
FSS.
Yes.
But it's not
well,
listed as a specific
well,
item. I don't know if that's a detail that's.
I prefer that we discuss it with Jim because it may be something we can mention during the groundwater authority item on the open session.
Okay.
But I would defer to Jim on his opinion on that.
Fair enough.
I do have a question. Resolution number 22, TAC 01, AB 361 finding. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, please? That's the highlighted one.
Oh, that was during COVID, that you can continue to have virtual meetings.
Oh,
If you were going to have virtual meetings, you needed to have announced every meeting that you a finding that you renew the resolution, I guess is what it is essentially. So it's on there highlighted to make, I don't think we need to have it on, but we want to make sure that Jim agrees to take it off.
okay. So
That's
at
why
some
it's
point,
highlighted.
there may be at some point, there will be another crisis.
And then we bring it back again.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily need to re-up it at this time.
Item 8B was a result of discussion yesterday. We have the P&E meeting and finance meetings on the same day, an hour apart. And recent experience has been that the P&E meeting goes maybe 15, 20 minutes, half hour at the most, and then the directors that are on both committees sit around and wait to reconvene at 3 o'clock. So the thought would be to schedule the finance meeting for 2:30 instead of 3 o'clock.
Okay.
That would require a board action and a resolution because you're changing a regularly scheduled meeting.
And if the first meeting went more than a half hour, it's okay to start the second meeting after the declared time, but it's not okay to start a meeting before the announced time.
Is that correct?
Correct.
That's
yeah.
interesting.
As long as you don't start before the scheduled time, you're okay.
Okay, all right.
And then item 8C, I would just point out that, as you all know, Director Torres has been mentioning the last several meetings about wanting to find grant funding for an pumping optimization project. The groundwater sustainability plan mentions a pumping optimization project, which essentially involves moving pumping to the northwest area and also to the El Paso subbasin. During the Water Management Committee meeting, I had Tim Parker call in. Tim and I had a conversation, and Tim actually had some ideas of expanding the scope of that project and maybe being able to find some grant money to support, for example, including a recharge project and make it one project. So this is basically just going to be a discussion. Tim will be on participating and just an open discussion with the board, maybe looking for direction from the board as to maybe expanding, Stan's idea of this pumping optimization program to include some other things.
Okay, all right. Stan's report, pumper adjudication, okay. Is there anything else that that we need to discuss on the agenda? You satisfied, sir?
That's satisfying.
All right, then I think unless there's a comment from the other committee members, we're good to go on
Only
that.
that this is the longest admin exec committee meeting since I've been here.
It is now stretched to 38 minutes. All right. Item number 11, future agenda items. Does anybody on the committee have an item they'd like to add for the future? All right. Very good. Then I will say, hearing nothing, we're going to adjourn the meeting at 3:39 p.m.